Welcome back. In my previous video, I promised that this video would be all about putting the engine back in the car. And it is, so let's get started. Regarding automobiles, yeah. Welcome. I have a few days off here and we're currently Monday. I would like to have the car running for Friday. Maybe not driving around, but at least running. And between everything that I labeled when I was pulling it out and watching the Mod Mini blown engine videos, 7, 8, 9 specifically, I've created this list of 43 things that I need to do in order to have this car running. Now, one problem with my system is that when I was taking everything out, I was labeling both ends. Like if I unplugged something, I would label both ends. But this isn't the same engine. Obviously, I've done so much work on it. So only the cables that are on the car still are labeled. So that should help, but nothing on the engine is labeled. But I think everything can only go in one place. It's just a matter of routing the cables, that type of thing. So yeah, it's Monday. Let's get started. Hopefully this is done by Friday. Okay, the engine is sitting in the car right now. I did it with Spirit Pseudo last weekend, just sat it on the engine mounts. And while we were putting it in, we were discussing whether or not there was anything sort of behind that I wanted to hook up first. I figured I could get down in there, but watching the Mod Mini video makes it pretty obvious it's way easier if I just lift it up again and pull it out a little bit. So I'm gonna do that just so I can get my hands back there to hook up some of the wires. Okay, a little example why everything takes me so long compared to the videos I'm watching. The oil cooler is on the car like this, and obviously the cooling lines that I made come off of here and go into the cooling system. But there's two spots in the cooling system, and I'll show you here. One of them goes into like a 3-way splitter and one goes into a 4-way splitter. So it took me like half an hour to go through just random pictures of oil changes and such to find out that the top one, when it's on the car, the one that's closest to the front and at the top, goes in the line that's closest to the front, and that goes into the 4-way splitter. So small things like that. Now I need to find the set of cables. Coil pack. Okay, so that's top of the engine. This octopus. Luckily everything is still labeled here. Okay, starter motor. And this should be power steering. Yeah, power steering fan, power steering pump, start motor. The one thing about all these cables is that I didn't entirely know what I was doing when I was pulling everything out. Some of the labels are not wrong, are wrong. Temp sensor, question mark. Obviously this is what I'm dealing with here. That's the part I've been dreading. Alternator. Okay, so here's my battery terminal, and you can see it's kind of a mess down here with the shift cables. So this is routed all wrong. From the images I'm looking at, it looks like the red is supposed to sort of come over here, and then the black is actually supposed to go down like this way. So you have to pull everything out a little bit further and try and route those properly. Okay, here it is now. That's more what it's going to be like. I think that once I drop this all in, it'll all, like once I drop it all back in, this piece will be more down here, and this will be free. So I think this is going to work a lot better. Okay, and you can see here, where'd my cable go now? Now it'll fit. Before it wouldn't even come close. And the one for the power steering pump will still fit right there. So yeah, that's way better. Okay, so I just spent a lot of time fixing that routing, and that's gonna be day one coming to an end. I did 4 steps in about 6 hours. And that was just because I had to pull the engine in and out 3 or 4 times, just because I have no idea what I'm doing and getting everything pinched or routed properly. And I'm gonna have to do it one more time to replace a cooling line that, I don't know, it just doesn't make me feel good the way it is. So we're gonna call it that the end of day 1. So let's see here, I did how many? I did 4, so 39 more steps to go. Okay, we are Tuesday now, and I'm gonna take the engine out one more time. This will be the 4th time or 5th time, just to replace that cooling hose, which is a little suspect. So let's get right to that. Okay, now that I have this tube out, it's not, like, it looks pinched, but it just actually goes from bigger to smaller. So it was a pain in the ass to get out, but I'm gonna put it back in. Okay, I don't see any reason why we can't put this heat shield over the starter now. Everything's connected to it. Okay, that heat shield, really, I only have 38 steps left. But the engine's in now, so now it's time to start hooking up all the hoses, which are a snake's nest, a nightmare snake's nest. I did leave this note to myself: replace me. So I do actually have that replacement hose there. Everything on this car is covered in rust, even just like the little bolts and stuff that are on here. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna put it back on. It's fine, it's metal. That's just astonishing. Okay, this tube that comes from the cooling system underneath the thermostat, and there's an M8 bolt that holds it in place against the head that goes into the water pump. Just make sure you put this in before you put the thermostat in, because it doesn't fit otherwise. Okay, we can't put this thermostat in just yet because this bracket goes onto it, and there's a bolt in it that I have to get out and replace. So I'm gonna let that soak for a little while. So I can't put the thermostat on. I can do the clutch though. Should be pretty straightforward. Okay, so that looks on in the slot. Okay. I got there was no pressure on the pedal. I mean, the line was corroded, but it was hard to push in. So why is the clutch pedal? Okay, this is gonna delay things. I have no idea what's wrong here. So that means there's maybe no fluid in it, or somehow the pedal's been disconnected from the system, which I don't even know how to do. Yeah, this might be it for today. Okay, Tuesday is complete. Went to the store, bought a bunch of all the fluids I'm gonna need, or a bunch of the fluids I'm gonna need. Discovered a couple more parts that are broken and probably need to be replaced. Got everything hooked up properly here. Fed all the lines underneath. They were kind of pinched when I finally put it in, but fed them all through, so all the cooling lines are in there. Put the first set of cooling lines on here. But that clutch slave cylinder is the concern right now. Tomorrow, I'm gonna try and bleed it. It's been sitting up by the windshield, like up here, for 2 years. So any air that was in that line is probably right inside that cylinder. Right now the pedal has no pressure on it at all. Like you just touch it and it goes right to the floor. So tomorrow I'm gonna try and bleed it. If the bleeding doesn't work, that means that either the cylinder or the feed line have gone bad and have leaked, which means I have to buy new ones. It's gonna slow me down a lot. I learned today actually that I don't know why I never thought about this before, but the clutch and the brakes use the same reservoir. The brake sort of pickup is at the bottom of the reservoir, and the clutch is higher up, meaning that even if the clutch was leaking, the brakes won't have to be bled. They'll still have fluid in there for the brakes. Anyway, I'm gonna call it for today, and we'll start again tomorrow. Okay, bonus Tuesday material. I didn't want to quit for the day just yet. Still a little bit early. Still don't want to get discouraged. I still want to finish this soon. So next is the fuel rail I can do without fixing the clutch. The injectors are the factory injectors. I had them redone, refurbished at a local place. So I'll just put those back in and we should be good to go. Okay, make sure you clear out the old gaskets from inside. Orientation is like this. Sorry, yeah. So they go in like that. And I assume we just push these in. And I've got these retaining clips. Boom. Okay, and do that 4 times. You probably don't remember, but when I was taking these out, I kind of made a joke about how they were garbage and I was going to replace them. The problem with that, of course, is that injectors are not cheap to get the same ones. It's actually, I think, cheaper to get like aftermarket bigger ones. And then that led to, oh, well, if I'm going to get bigger injectors, well, then I'm going to need a tune. So what do I need for a tune? Oh, and if I'm going to do that, then, you know, I might as well get a new cam. And you're probably thinking like, oh, you should have done it because everything was already all apart. But all of a sudden, I mean, it's already been way more expensive than I had planned. And that would have added thousands of dollars. So that, let's call that stage 2. Stage 1 is get it running. Okay, so tomorrow, hopefully I can get a rusted bolt out that's gonna be soaking overnight, and then I'll bleed the slave cylinder, and then we'll keep going. That was the real end to Tuesday. Okay, we're Thursday. Wednesday got away from me, got a little bit, got some good progress done, but discovered 2 kind of showstoppers for my progress. One is this bracket. You saw me working on it yesterday, that goes just above the thermostat, kind of like that. And it holds airflow sensor, I believe, on top. And there's just 2 little captive nuts on it. And one of them, the tiny screws that hold this in, the tiny bolts that hold it in, was completely fused to the captive nut. I tried to drill it out, didn't work. Tried a little more, got a little frustrated, kind of turned into a butcher job. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm gonna try and replace or grind off the existing captive nut and put a new one on. Second thing. Okay, so the second thing is, here are my 2 heads, or sorry, 2 engine covers. This is facelift, this is pre-facelift and installed. And you'll see there's a little screw here, and there isn't here. It's because on the facelift, this bypass valve is threaded, and so it just goes right in. Whereas on this one, it's just held in with a screw, and it sort of has a little tab here. So I have this valve, but this cover installed. So I have to wait for this valve to be, and I confirmed all this with the R53 DIY Facebook group. So yeah, I have to wait for this valve to come in before I can install it. Okay, so that's flat now. There's the other one. You see little tiny captive nut, but now I've flatted that one out. Okay, here's the tiny M4 nut that normally goes in there. So that's the tiny bolt that goes in. It has a little Allen key top, and these, you put no pressure at all, like no torque at all on these. So I just replaced them. I'm just gonna replace them with some standard hex head, same thread, M4 by 20, I think these are. Now I could actually just leave it like this. That'll hold. Like, these don't need that much pressure on them, but that would also mean that every time I want to do this, I have to get down, and hold the nut and washer there. So I think it's about that time that I made this a true project car. And you knew it had to show up at some point, right? Okay, there we go. A little sloppy, but that's pretty standard for JB Weld. Leave that overnight and we should be good to go. Okay, this is the current state of the clutch pedal. So, not ideal. At this point, I decided to use the power bleeder that I had from the brake bleeding that I did to bleed the slave cylinder to try and get pressure back in the pedal. Seems very open. Oh God. Oh my God, it's black. Holy crap. Not sure if you ever get a good view of that, but so far black and air coming out. Oh yeah, okay, it's a lot clearer now. That's good. I tried to bleed it 3 or 4 times. I kept adding new fluid and just didn't seem to be able to get it quite working. And then this is my final attempt to try and go test the pedal again.
Nope. What?
Okay, that obviously didn't work. All the black sludge that came out of the slave cylinder, and it was making a weird noise, and it was really hard to push in. So here we are, a few days later, $100 later. I've got a new one, and just for good measure, I have the pipe that goes into it too. So gonna replace those, and then we'll see if we can bleed it again and get it to work. Okay, I've tried to bleed this thing. Maybe the other one was fine, I just don't know how to bleed it. So I watched the Mod Mini video again, decided on this configuration. So I put the oil in the power bleeder, so the brake fluid in the power bleeder. Now I have this fully compressed with a band, which I thought I did before, but I've added full tension here by pushing it down on the bench and then tightening the screws. I had the bleed valve above the cylinder and the input. I just have it sitting on some frame bolts here. So I'm hoping that when I open this now, any air getting out will be the last of the air. So if this doesn't work, then there's something else broken. I really hope this works. Okay, there does not appear to be any more air coming out. Oh, you bastard better work. So what we want to happen here is for this to move in and out when I hit the pedal. So let's see. And for it to not feel like a sponge. Okay. Oh yeah. Yes. Yes. Okay, it actually felt like a clutch pedal. Yeah. God, that took me so long. I don't even know if the old one was broken. I just don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, definitely, I mean, this thing is pretty flexible in how it can move around, like the tube that goes into it. So I definitely recommend setting it up here and just letting the air come out. That seemed to do it. Yeah. Obviously, the whole do this all in 1 week thing is out the window right now. The slave cylinder is good to go. I'm happy about that. It was snowing earlier this week, and now it's like 24 degrees, so I don't really know what's happening. But I think I have all the parts I need, so we're gonna keep going. Now that the clutch is in, and I can pop it back into its harness here. There we go. Now we need to figure out all this over here. So thermostat, basically. Connected the thermostat and realized it would be easier to take it back off so that I could get the shift cables reconnected. Didn't really film most of that, but here's the result. So reverse, first, second. Oh yeah, yes. Okay, good news is I have all the cooling hoses on and everything looks good. Bad news is this. I'll give you a couple seconds to try and identify that. That is the ping sensor or knock sensor, and it goes behind the supercharger. So the alternator has to come off, supercharger has to come off, which means it has to disconnect from the belt tensioner and the water pump, all the cooling lines I just put on. Okay, there it is, 20 degrees above center to the right. And torque should be about 14.7 I think it said. So put it like that and torque it up. Okay, here's the current state of things. We're into the final push here, I think. Everything's hooked up. Sensors are all aligned. The octopus, I'm not sure if you can see this. There's a bracket here that you can't forget. It's got 2 grommets on the bottom, and there's a little M6 sort of welded in bolt there. That's how the octopus sort of is actually secured to the car. It took me a while to figure that out. I don't think there's another attachment point. Okay, so I think next up is this ridiculous piece. This is a stupid piece. I think it is stupid. I do not like it. Okay, the next step is going to be putting on the throttle body, supercharger horn, and hooking it all the pipes up. There is a gasket that goes on the bottom of the throttle body here, and this represents, if you remember that video, all that time ago when I had everything laid out on a table, this is the last gasket that I have. So everything else that I put in should be gasket free, and we're in the home stretch. Oh my God, I can't believe how hard that was. I wish I could give you a technique. Take the vacuum lines off of the plastic piece, attach the horn loosely, attach the throttle body to the plastic piece, come up from underneath, put the gasket on the supercharger, not on the horn, and then it all kind of just pushes up in together, and then just drop in the 2 bolts that hold the throttle body to the bracket that's there. And that should be good. I think we're set now.